Hello everybody, it is LPS Emily and welcome to our makeshift alien podcast setup. And yes, that's a dishwasher, but I thought it looked a little bit futuristic, so... When I made this ant-cat hybrid with 6 feeties, a lot of people were saying that it could be really cool to make an alien custom. Today our subject will be this LPS Himalayan cat. I wanted to use a different head from the wolf cat mold that I used last time. I think her face shape will fit absolutely perfectly in an astronaut helmet.
Here's today's sketch. We are going for the cutest pastel alien astronaut ever. She'll have a space gun accessory as well as a detachable helmet. I want to do watercolor pastel eyes, metal rings around her sculpted antenna, and give her 6 legs. I'll be sculpting her entire tail and removing her tuft of hair from her forehead to make room for her tall antenna. This is going to be my most detailed custom yet, and I am so excited. Alright, sci-fi friends, let's get into this. Before we start, I would like to officially share that I have found pastina, which is tiny little baby pastas that are shaped like stars. Tell me this isn't the cutest thing you've ever seen, okay? Okay. What if I encapsulated these in resin and then put them on? I'd never be able to make stars this small, and it's my custom, so... As always, when I'm working with Littlest Pet Shops and doing head swaps, I'm warming up the plastic with a hairdryer to remove her head from her body. G7 LPS are a little finicky when it comes to head removal because they're in super tight, so be patient and gentle so that you don't break the neck peg. You need to trust the vision. You have to trust her. You know, she looks pretty untrustworthy, but if you want to see untrustworthy, get a load of this. Now we're removing the factory paint from both pieces with acetone. I strongly recommend using 100% acetone for this. Oh my gosh, she looks so sickly. If you're using G7 LPS, their eyes won't come off because they're printed on, but anything other than that will come right off. I am using a pointy Q-tip to get in there real good. Let's focus on her head for a little bit. Doctor, scalpel, suture. I am removing her hair. I warm her up and she is super toasty, and then I give her a little haircut with a craft blade. Definitely don't do that if you're trying to cut your hair. This was purely an aesthetic decision because I want her to have a painted pattern on her forehead. Oh god, oh no. Okay, no. Okay, listen up folks. This is where we first go wrong. I start by using polymer clay to fill in her head hole, and everything was going good and dandy. I got it super flat, and it looked really great. I thought that putting in the armatures for her antenna wouldn't be too difficult, but apparently I didn't learn from last time and forgot that it would require some force. I mark where I want the antenna to be placed with a thin Sharpie and use a hot pin to pierce the plastic where the antenna are going to... oh my god, no. oh, this is not... Okay, I brute force some eye pins into the holes under the head to create the armature for the antenna so that they have better structure. She is so bald. I promise this will look a lot better later. I promise. You have... Oh my god. I use epoxy clay to build up the antenna and trim off the ends so that they're flat for the spheres that will go on top. While waiting for that epoxy clay to dry, I add tufts inside of her ears with the same clay, and make smaller antennae coming off the sides of her head like the cat ant that I made recently. This will sit overnight before I add on the metal rings so that I'm not curing resin onto uncured resin clay. I use small jump rings and cure them onto her antenna horizontally to use gravity in my favor. And then I cure those under an LED light. I then sculpt the spheres that go on top with epoxy and attach them to the antenna. I love her. She's not perfect, but like, I'm really proud of her anyway. Since I sculpted everything on the head before putting the head on the body, I decided to shave down the neck peg with a blade to make it easier to insert into the neck of the body. Yippee! I'm warming up the base body, and we're cutting off the abdomen of the ant. We won't be needing this since we're replacing it with a big old fluffy tail.
Oh, it looks like a Skittle.
Alright, let's take a quick break to have a word from today's sponsor, Life. Today they sent me 3 different DIY sets: the beautiful blooming tea garden set, the sweet sips tea set, and the sweet dream bedroom set. Life is one of my favorite miniature brands for dollhouses and accessories that perfectly fit little pet shops, calico critters, and art toys. They also have a variety of book nooks, 3D wooden puzzles, and easy to put together doll rooms. These doll rooms are genuinely a lot of fun to spend time building. It's really relaxing, it's not too difficult to put together, and the instructions are clear. It's a fun, quiet activity to just wind down doing. The details of the tiny accessories are just so fun. They have a teeny tiny espresso machine that I just adore, and they're just so elaborate. You can also mix and match accessories into different rooms, or just have fun putting everything together in new ways. You can also purchase them with roofs and dustproof doors to stack and make a big dollhouse with all of the rooms. The lighting that comes with each room varies from an overhead light, wall sconces, or standalone lamps. No extra wiring needed. They're very easy to plug into a power source like a portable charger, and I just find it so convenient. I genuinely love this brand, and I absolutely adore their sets and accessories for my LPS. I have a pretty big Life collection so far, and I literally use all of their accessories in making my own sets as well. It's really fun. Go to robotimeonline.com to check out some of their new sets and use code LPS15 for 15% off your order, or follow the links in the description. Thank you so much, Life, and now let's get back to our video. For this fluffy tail, we'll be needing an armature, which, as I mentioned before, a hem will reinforce the tail connection, will act as a skeleton to make sure any pressure is distributed evenly and not focused on the end of the thorax. Science. I use a hot pin to make a hole. I insert a 20 gauge wire with pliers, and then I bring in the plastic ball that I'm using for the helmet to make sure that the tail won't be in the way when I sculpt the shape that I want it to be. I start to sculpt the tail by adding the clay onto her bummy and then blending it out. I make sure I cover the whole tail and then bake it so that we have structure to build more of the tail upon.
I've actually decided that I think she needs more of a bummy. So I'm gonna blend this in, but I think she deserves a bit more of a trunk. So let's do that.
Then I build it up from there. Lots of trial, lots of error. While creating today, I listened to my Liminal Space playlist, I watched Blade Runner 2049, and an 11-hour German 985 VOD. It took me a hot minute to mold the tail in the way that I wanted it to be, adding more clay, shaving some off, and then cutting off little tufts and blending them in. It's a whole process. I used some super sculpey Palmer clay to form her toe beans. I pressed some onto the top and bottom of the feet and then blended into the plastic. Then I make small indents to imply the toe beanage. I bake her in the oven at 220 for 15 minutes. I add a little dot of epoxy clay as a button on her side. Her body will be painted white like the spacesuit, so even though it looks like it, the button isn't pinned into her fur. I used warmed up Knead-A-Tight, and I lay it flat on the table and cut strips to use as cuffs on her spacesuit. We're making an illusion that she's wearing a spacesuit by using these as the barriers between her paws and her suit.
I don't think I've cried over this one yet, actually. So, basically what I'm saying is that I'm a winner. This is not working, I'm gonna throw up.
I make some cuffs and then indent them with a sculpting tool for some texture. I actually forgot to do the tail one, but I do it later, don't worry. the head couldn't be reattached normally without using brute force and ruining what I had already sculpted, I used super glue to glue her neck peg back in. Not ideal, but it worked. For the helmet, I cut off the little nubbin on the top with a blade that I heated with a lighter. And then after trying to cut the neck hole with this same heated blade, I thought that maybe using a nail drill with a strong grit would be the best bet to make a neck hole indent. Yay! Success! We have run into a minor oopsie daisy. It is essentially finding out that her neck peg is, going to be showing in the helmet because of the space I did not account for underneath her head. I panicked. The idea was to have it sitting on top of here. I consulted Autumn, Hello Studios, and she said that if I just make the hole wider, I can make it straddle sort of underneath the cuff. It will allow the head to sit normally. And then we're gonna see how this looks. I wanted to make sure the space helmet was removable, but also didn't have a visual seam right on the top. My idea here was to cover half in cellophane wrap, sculpt the epoxy on top, and then hopefully when it hardens, I'll be able to remove one of the sides from the epoxy. I sculpt the band and both sides of the helmet with epoxy. Since I'm still newish to making custom videos, I'm still getting the groove of figuring out the best camera settings. I've tried to take as many blurry clips out as I can, but some are needed for context. I promise I'm working towards better filming and camera settings and stuff. I'm just learning. It sort of looks like headphones, which I love. I added indents to the sides of the helmet pieces to make them look like flowers. Once I let them dry overnight, I just use a nail file to sand the pieces flat. I was following a bad sketch that I did initially of her. It kind of looked like a really happy chrome logo. I ended up looking some inspiration photos up on Pinterest and then kind of copying the structure of those mech headsets. The epoxy clay wasn't strong enough to hold and cure on the sides of the helmet, so I switched over to polymer clay. And I actually indented some of them with some like mech cyber shapes, but it was so thin that it ended up filling up with paint later, so don't worry about that. I also baked the microphone on a little wire. I made a little hole for it in the side of the headset and glued it in, letting it cure overnight. We should probably start by trying to unwrap this, because if we can't get it off, we are back to square one. Slide out the bottom. Slide out the top. Hey, nice. I would love to like have a cord connecting the helmet to the spacesuit, but then it would just be like so difficult. I'd just be creative and have fun layering them how I pleased. I kind of wish that I made the mech on the headset little wings. It's fine. I'm not bothered. I just lay awake at night in bed thinking about it. It's fine. I don't even care. I attach all the pieces with UV gel and include 2 of the star pastas on either side. I do not care if you think it's gross or if it'll deteriorate. I am here for a good time, and these are so cute. So talk to the hand. Talk to the hand. I'm putting pasta. There's pasta. It's pasta. I sculpted the tip of the gun and all the accessories with epoxy clay and then attached the pastina pastas onto the gun but covered them in a resin gel and then cured them using a UV lamp. I used some of the extra bits from the helmet mech and then attached those as well. Now it's time to paint. I put on a base coat of dry brushed white to give her an even primed base to paint on top of. I do find that the spaces on the doll made from polymer clay do require a bunch more coats of paint. Does anyone know if the clay absorbs it or why this might be? Did anybody notice the Outer Wilds music, or just me? If you like space exploration games that are like heavy on puzzles and lore, it's an incredible indie game, and the DLC is like my favorite. Fun fact, I used to hate sci-fi and just like the entire concept of it, but I took a sci-fi narrative class when I was in college to just kind of like challenge myself, and I absolutely loved it. It totally opened my eyes, and now I am free to be a big old sci-fi nerd. It is just so interesting. Sci-fi narrative writing is really fun, and I am like the biggest SCP nerd. Yeah, I know, in 2025, wow, but yeah. Here I'm painting some details like her tail scalloping, tips of her ears, her tufties, and her forehead pattern. I paint her little metal rings yellow as well. Do you guys have a favorite alien character or a favorite sci-fi character? I want to know who it is. Let's have some sci-fi conversations in the comments. Really been loving Unend, a podcast by third person. It is just absolutely splendid. Let me know if you've listened to Midst or Unend. I gave her a gummy pink nose. Look how pretty my paper towel is. These are wonderful colors. I decided to define the indents of the cuffs with some dark pink so that they're a little bit easier to see. I think her freckles kind of look like little stars. I really like how they turned out. Oh, I should have done star freckles. Are you kidding me? I'm also painting the helmet mecha a white base coat before adding any color. I wanted cute little stars on the helmet, so I brought the same 3 colors back and did 3 cute stars on the front. I tried adding some line detailing on the side of the mech, but hated it and then painted over it, so you know, it was worth a try. And I continued to paint the gun. When painting LPS eyes, I've been trying to see out the best technique ever. I like to do the eyelashes as a first layer instead of trying to do the eyelashes right outside of the eye, if that makes sense. So starting on the inside and then pushing the color up against the outer wall of the eye so that it naturally takes shape, and then building from there. And one of my biggest recommendations that I've kind of come across is just making sure that you have your base coat lying around for corrections. If you don't have a color match to touch up any mistakes, it's just gonna make the whole process a lot more stressful because it's kind of like using it as an eraser. I've never done pointy stylized lashes before, and it was kind of nerve-wracking, but really fun. I layer a bunch of watered down paint up inside the eye, and I use the same off-white as the spacesuit. I prefer not to use stark white or stark black on customs, just so that I can keep them softer looking. Guys, I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna mess up the whole custom. I'm gonna do it. Okay. I've never used
watercolor pencils.
I was super excited to use these watercolor pencils. They're Derwent ink tints, I believe. I've linked them down below with the rest of my materials. I got them as a gift and I was shocked at how saturated and beautifully they went on. I really want to try these more, so I just kind of build them up on the eyes and then use a tad bit of water on a paintbrush to kind of blend them out.
So exciting! Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful!
And then I paint the darks of her eyes and the star eye shines.
I almost forgot to give her beans!
All 18 beans. I think one of my next customs needs to be like a cutie girl cybernetic robot or something. You can kind of see with this space helmet that I was craving something really mechanical and futuristic and dystopian. I don't know. I work on both eyes at the same time to just make sure that I'm keeping everything even. I used watered down matte Mod Podge to seal her entire body, as well as the stars on the helmet and the mech parts. I wish I had access to Mr. Super Clear. I think a spray top coat would just make everything look so much smoother and just kind of melt in together. Does anyone have any top coat alternatives? I took some artistic liberties with sealing parts of the custom with glossy UV resin, like parts of the gun, headset, button, etc., because I thought it would look cute and gummy. Now that I think of it, she is kind of colored like a candy necklace. I've been making art for years, and with my love for miniatures and art dolls and character creation, this just feels like such a natural progression for me. I'm really excited to try my hand at making some more like sci-fi monster creatures. It sounds really challenging, but like really exciting, and I'm just excited to design new stuff. Like, how cool is that? I like to think that this alien is a part of this big group of space kitties that all get along and they're best friends and they explore galaxies together, and she has a special interest in botany and plant matter and does a lot of microbiology with what she finds on different planets. She's very brave. She's a very good friend to all of her friends. If you have any more lore for her or a cute name suggestion, let me know. I'd love to see.
Okay, so the last final thing we have to do is officially put her together, and I'm scared. Here's the helmet before the helmet breaks. This helmet's gonna look huge on her, but her. Oh my god. Oh my god. Call me Sabrina Carpenter, cause I'm begging. And I go, please, please, please. Heartbreak is one thing, my kitten's another.
I think she turned out pretty close to my original idea. I'm so glad the watercolor eyes turned out the way that they did, and the helmet is just so freaking cool. The gun is a nice addition as well. Even though she can't hold it, I still think it's a pretty cute prop. Maybe I'll make a little skit with her and my cat aunt in the future. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye!